Welcome to the Rediscovery Journal, the podcast where healing meets honesty. I'm your host, Sophia, and each week we dive deep into conversations of self-discovery, mental health, and the raw, real moments that shape who we are. Whether you're on the journey of growth, seeking clarity, or simply need a reminder that you're not alone, you're in the right place. Let's rediscover what it means to truly know ourselves one conversation at a time. So, this week I have a really special guest with me. She's an award-winning poet who has two books released. A Generation of Sunflowers is the one of the books, and the other book is Bloom. She's an advocate for borderline personality disorder, and it's actually funny that we're meeting this month because she mentioned to me that May is BPD Awareness Month, and so that's super exciting. So just to kind of like generally jump in, is there anything extra you want to like introduce yourself about?
Well, your listeners probably expect that I am from the US. I am from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I am 24. I'm a self-published poet. I'm a grassroots poet. I believe in starting from the bottom, growing, kind of paving and solidifying your own road and just traveling on it. So that's me. I'm very excited to be speaking to you today. It's been a while since I've done a podcast, so this is kind of reinvigorating my spark for getting back on shows and just talking, being raw and real, and shooting the shit, as I like to say.
So like one thing that I wanted to talk to you about was first like some general stuff and then kind of diving a little bit into each of your books.
Yeah.
So the first thing, I know that your books mention borderline personality disorder. So I am not by any means an expert on BPD, and my kind of understanding of it is emotions kind of can change in like a blink of an eye or a simple moment. Is that an accurate understanding?
Now, in a nutshell, like if you just want to classify BPD in a sentence, sure. I mean, yeah, you could say that. And why does it shift so rapidly? Well, it's because it's a trauma disorder. And when you're living in trauma, you're
Mm.
dysregulated. How are you supposed to be? How are you supposed to be happy for a while? How are you supposed to be sad for a while? You're going through it. You're in the trenches. You are living in trauma. Now, I guess to give a more in-depth, I guess, description of what BPD is, it's genetic, but it's also environmentally stimulated. So I did a Harvard Medical School course actually online because I figured I probably need some
Cool.
education behind my advocacy. I mean, yes, I live with it. It's lived experience is the most important qualification you can have, but I wanted some background. I wanted to learn a little bit more, the workings. So I found out that BPD is actually 55% heritable. It can be passed on through your parent 55%. So that's quite high. I don't really
Mhm.
like that. That's very high. So add in a 55% chance of you having this disorder because of a parent, and then add in the adverse childhood experience or trauma or what have you. 1 + 1 = 2. There you go. You've got borderline. Now I will say some people have not underwent childhood trauma. Some people actually, it's just genetic. Like some people have really nice cookie cutter, dare I say. I like to use that term when I'm talking about something that society deems as normal. I like to say cookie cutter.
Mm.
Maybe people live that cookie cutter life and they still end up with BPD. That's really unfortunate, but it's just how it goes sometimes. So BPD is half genetic, half environmental. It is characterized by crazy moods. I don't really think crazy is the best way to explain it, but moods that are very unpredictable, swings. The roller coaster is the best way to describe it. It is, you're going up, and then you're going down, you're going down. You're going up, then you're going down, down, down. Now the difference between BPD, borderline, and bipolar is with bipolar you sit in the highs for a while, and then you can sit in the lows for the while. There's no kind of, I guess, swinging between emotions in a day versus BPD. I can go through 10 or 15 emotions in an hour span, and it's really exhausting. So why did I put
Mm.
that in there just now? People like to confuse borderline with bipolar, but they're completely different. Borderline is a personality disorder, and bipolar is a mood disorder. Completely different. So I just gave you a really long answer to a question, but
No, I think that that's actually really insightful. Because I mean, I took a psychology class in college, but
yeah.
we didn't go kind of into the in-depths on that level for things. So could it be like one comment can potentially kind of switch that mood, or is it, or I guess like what typically kind of changes or causes the shift?
Okay, well, personally for me, I'm out of the worst parts of my life, for sure. I'm just living in the shell shock and the aftermath of all of it, so I'm trying to heal. But what I'm learning is I'm through the worst of it. I'm living in I try to live in a regulated state, but with borderline, I guess our go-to, our default is dysregulation because that's what we're used to in our adverse childhood,
Okay.
through our trauma, through our experiences. So we are living in our fight or flight. We are living in a heightened parasympathetic nervous system, right? So I'm on guard. My shoulders are up to my ears. I'm ready. I'm in fight or flight mode, and I can't ever put them down and relax. That's
Hmm.
what it feels like. But going into recovery and doing DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, that is the one therapy that is actually very effective for the treatment of borderline. Plus meds, it's workable. You can manage it. You can regulate yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. That was huge what this diagnosis was.
Yeah, I feel like that's hard for everybody.
Yeah, like it's not going anywhere. She's here to stay. I have to somehow learn to hold her hand. I can't slap it away anymore because she's here to stay. We have to learn how
Mm.
to work with one another. Yeah, so because I live, me personally, I live in that fight or flight mode. Something like that. Someone says maybe something not great to me or that triggers me and they didn't know it triggered me. I'm heightened and I am ragey in a second. Rage is the one emotion that I really, really struggle with. One of my huge symptoms is the rage, like just fly off the handle rage. And of course, from my diagnosis in 2020 to now, I don't fly off the handle like I used to. I use my
So
skills.
how can someone, if they notice they said something that triggered you, how can they kind of help you to get out of that place?
I think just realizing, well, I first off need to tell them that, this was probably a sore spot for me and maybe we need to not go there, or maybe can you adjust the way that you said this or did this? And that's why you have to have flexible people in your crew, flexible people in your friend
Hmm.
net, because they have to be willing to hear maybe some uncomfortable things or something they thought they didn't do wrong, but maybe rubbed me the wrong way, or us, open parentheses, us with BPD, rubbed us the wrong way. You have to be ready to set boundaries and voice them. And that's
Oh,
something.
that's
Yep. Yep. And this actually rolls into talking about my second collection, Bloom. I wrote a piece called Boundaries Are Healthy because for a long time I struggled with that. Going through trauma around being groomed, coerced, etc., etc. No was not a word in my vocabulary.
mm,
And finally, I'll be 25 in November. No was finally creeping into my vocabulary. And that's huge. That's huge because
yeah. I feel like it's such a small word, but it's one of the hardest words. Especially, I don't know if this is just a female specific thing, but I feel like it's very common in females to struggle with the concept of like I can say no.
we aren't disposable. Like, I don't know. Like, we aren't to be at someone's beck and call, and we're somehow wired to think that we are, but we aren't. We don't owe anybody anything. You owe, because at the end of the day, you owe yourself everything, nobody else.
Mm.
And, just looking over the list of questions here that you sent me, just, loose template. You mentioned, at the end of the day, we are home with ourselves. Our body is our temple, it's our home. How do we become comfortable with that? How do we honor that? You honor it one day at a time. You ask for help. You put up your hand when you're struggling. You go to therapy. Maybe you get medication, maybe you don't. You do what works for you, but that's how you do it. You have to take it one day at a time. Here's a vulgar kind of metaphor, but grab life by the balls and say, I am doing this. It is my time. It's my turn. And I am raw and real. What you see is what you get. There's no filter
And
with
I'm
the author.
That's kind of how I am as a person too, because I don't, for me personally, I don't really understand why like switching up on people, if that makes sense. Like being one person to one person
Yeah, it's
and then
exhausting.
being completely different with someone else. I mean, I would say that, I'm not to the point where I know exactly everything about myself and who I am, but I try to be like, if I'm feeling something, I'm feeling it, and that's how I am. One thing I kind of wanted to talk to you about is, I think before we started recording, I mentioned this, but I've constantly been told that I'm too much as a
Mhm.
person. Is that anything that you've ever had to deal with just being who you are?
100,000%. I was bullied from, the time I started school until grade 12. I was Weird Al. I was Big Al. I was bullied for everything under the sun, including not having a biological mother in my life, just a grandma. So I was picked on for everything.
Wow.
Your shoes, the shoe type you wore, to your size, to whether or not you had a mother. It was crazy. But yes, it was always, I was a bigger girl. So, no, you're taking up too much space. We don't want you on our basketball team. And yes, that's quite literally, that was a thing. Weird Al, Big Al, she's running her mouth again. Like, can't she shut up? Like, she's taking up so much space. And it was not it. Like, I was raised by grandpa, rest in peace, and my father. And I was told, you just do you, you be you. This world has
Mm.
more than enough space to hold you and everyone else in it. So I was just me, unapologetically me. But of course, while being stifled and bullied, you lose that part of yourself. So I lost
Yeah,
that.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's very hard in the world that we live in to grow up and not have some sort of traumatic experience, especially when it comes to school stuff. And I think part of it is like some people don't want to recognize behaviors, right?
Yep.
And no, not my Susie. Susie would never. And then, it becomes the person who was bullied's
Fault.
fault
Yep.
sometime in the situation.
That was a thing.
And it's very hard sometimes for me. I struggle with knowing what the truth is sometimes. I'm at the point of my life, or I have been for the past 25 years, whenever there's a situation or that occurs and maybe like an argument or a misunderstanding, I automatically go to, it's my fault. What did I do? Instead of seeing a situation for what it is and diagnosing it as, everything can't be my fault.
It's a huge,
And I've
huge mind growth or growth mindset, whatever.
Yeah, that's something I started thinking about more recently was like maybe the reason, because I was like, well, I'm involved in every situation that has gone awry. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but that's because it's gone awry in your life. So like everyone's going to be a consistent factor in their own lives.
Yeah.
But I think that that's just a daily struggle because I don't want to be the person who's always blaming other people when there's misunderstandings
Yeah.
because it's not possible that it's always someone else's fault either.
Nope, because I've learned it takes two to tango.
So I feel like I'm still working on kind of having that omniscient or like all outer experience to
Yeah.
figure out what the truth of the situation is. One thing I really enjoyed in general is I've listened to some clips of you like actually reading your book. And so I was wondering if you were ever going to go into like the audio book first.
Well, I've thought about it. I've highly and heavily considered it. I've really actually looked into it, but then I thought, you know what? I really enjoy when I advertise that I'm going to do spoken word because people are like, yeah, Ally's going to do this finally. We get to see her perform. Yeah. It's like kind of a special
Mm,
event for me in a way. I've had people say, well, then I don't know, can you hire someone else to read it for you so you don't necessarily have to, and then people can still get excited when you advertise that you're going to perform? Hell no. It's my words, my voice, or nobody's. No. But to answer your question, yes, I've highly considered it. Am I going to do it right now? No, probably not. But I've had a lot of people be like, you've got such a good voice, it travels, the passion in your words, you really need to share this. And I might agree with that, but no, not an audiobook for now. But
but I
maybe
feel
when volume 3 comes out, who knows?
that makes sense though, that if you still feel that kind of magic when you're doing it, you don't probably want to lose that feeling that you get. And it makes it more of a special experience versus you might not have as much excitement, like you said, if people are like, well, I can just go on Spotify and listen to this versus I have to see it in person, you know? I
Mm-hmm.
think that is a completely different experience. Going back to kind of like growth, I guess, how do you recommend like retraining your brain to kind of look at the positive talk or lean more towards that side instead of kind of drifting to when negative things happen, considering, as you mentioned earlier, like we are our own homes.
Yes, oh my God. I really struggled with that. I hated myself for over half of my life, and here I am now, almost 25, and I wrote a love letter to myself in Bloom, and it won the perfect poem with the Indieverse Awards. So I was obviously doing something right there. But something that really helped, especially living with borderline, was dialectical behavioral therapy. DBT is made up of 4 main sections. We've got mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, distress tolerance, and emotion regulation. I learned within doing this therapy that self-talk really, really matters. It really matters the way you view yourself, the way you talk to yourself specifically, though. And I actively had to retrain the way I talked to myself. And how I did that was I would write really positive affirmations about myself all over my house, in my room, so I would see it. But I'll also add another caveat. You have to want to change. You're going to have to want to reroute it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. You need to have the intrinsic motivation to want to do it. You can say to everybody,
Hmm.
yeah, I know I'm quite self-deprecating and I don't want to do this anymore. But you have to actually believe that. And that
Yeah, and you have to take the action.
and that goes dually for anything, whether or not maybe you're struggling with addiction. People can say, you need to get help. You might say outwardly you want to get help, but you have to believe it. Otherwise, it's
And you have to do it for yourself. You can't do it for other people because it's not gonna
no.
last long term. It's funny you say affirmations because right there's some of them I put a whole bunch around my apartment because I'm trying to get better with like not just giving other people affirmations but also giving myself affirmations.
I have a poem that I wrote in here. And this is my first book, A Generation of Sunflowers. I wrote a poem in here, and it's titled Words of an Empowering Woman. Why did I write it? Who did I write it for? It was for my editor of A Generation of Sunflowers, Angelica is her name. And she was my life coach, actually. She was using me as her guinea pig for life coaching for women with BPD. And this was back in 2020 when I was diagnosed. Anyhow, big part of our work together was affirmations, manifestations, manifesting. And I really spoke that into existence. And I ended up writing this piece because these are the words that she instilled in me to believe. And again, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I hear her tell me these words, but I actually have to deeply believe them. And I do. So I would actually love to read a piece from my first collection.
Yeah. Yes, dive in, girl.
And it's just right on the same sentiment as affirmations, because quite literally, these are the affirmations that Angelica taught me, and I just wholeheartedly believe that they are me. I am this woman. So this is a piece from my first collection, Words of an Empowering Woman. I am powerful. Everything I need is within me. I deserve to feel happy and I deserve to feel good. I let go of that which no longer serves me. Learning to love yourself and putting your own needs first are the most empowering actions you can take in this lifetime. Words of an Empowering Woman.
That hits hard.
It's simple, yet it's something we all should believe and strive to believe. That we are empowering women, we are empowering men, we are empowering they, thems, we're empowering people. We just need to believe it and see it,
I feel like sometimes the hardest things are the simplest things, though.
Certainly.
Like, one thing also, so I've been trying to ask each guest that I have on what era of their life they think that they're in and why. So for me, I don't know if you've listened to my podcast at all, but I am in my pivoting era.
Yep. Valid with your situation right now. Valid.
So what era do you think that you're currently on?
I'm in my abundant.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, hugely. I was a caregiver for my grandfather for 5 years with metastatic cancer and dementia. And why did I just brain fart again? Maybe it was because I was thinking about grandpa and I got caught up in my head. I remember these 5 years of taking care of grandpa. And one of the things that got me through, I'd always say to everybody, it's hell, but I'm going to get my good karma. I'm going to get my good karma. It's going to come to me. I know it will. What you put out there will come back to you one day. And the assholes will pay. And what I mean by that is everybody who bullied me, it'll come back to them. Good comes back to those who are good, and bad comes back to those who are bad. So that is what got me through the caregiving, was my good karma will eventually arrive. And it's been 3 months since my old bird, my grandpa's passed, and somehow March 1st, I had this surge of energy in my body that said, it's your new life now. He had passed February 15th, so March 1st, it was just like, you're starting your new life, you're in a new era. For March, it was, I'm in my flourishing era, but I'm in a different era now. I'll just explain. I like to give context. I'm a poet, I'm a writer. You can't keep me to shut up. You just can't get me to be quiet. So for a while there, I was in my blooming era, hence why my second collection is titled Bloom. My third collection will be titled Flourish, because Bloom is the start of healthy growth, and flourishing is complete, continuous healthy growth. I obviously could not title my second book Flourish. I wasn't there yet. I was only blooming. But now I'm flourishing, baby. And I got my grandfather to the finish line. I promised him I'd hold his hand and get him to the finish line. I did that with frickin' flying colors. And now all the seeds that I have planted over the past 4 years with my business of being a caregiver, being selfless, giving so much of myself to the world, it's coming back now. It's coming back. I have 12 book signings booked this year, and what is it? It's middle of May. Yeah. Like it's go time. It's my time, and everything is coming back to me. My grandfather is blessing me with abundance, with so many good opportunities from up in heaven or wherever he might be. And it's my time, and I'm in my abundant era. And I literally have said this to my girlfriends multiple times in the past week. We've talked about this. It's very important to me to recognize that. I'm grieving. I'm hurting. This is my first death. But guess what? At the same time, sadness, joy can also exist. So I'm in my grieving era, but I'm in my abundant era, baby. And we're going to keep that going.
Yeah, and I feel like that's so hard to kind of recognize that you can have good things happen with the bad instead of, because it's a lot easier, at least for me sometimes, to just sit in that darkness than to come out and be like, okay, yes, this is hard right now, but look at all of the positive things that have happened since this dark thing.
And I have a poem that echoes that. It's perfect.
Okay, let's go. Let's dive right in.
One reading from Agos and one reading from Bloom. So the poem that I'm pulling is actually from the first section of Bloom. The first section of Bloom all has to do with symptoms of living with BPD. That is what the first section is. It is a love letter to my brothers and sisters, theys and thems, everybody. This is my love letter to them. This is what BPD is to the core. And there's a poem that I wrote. Let me just find it here. It's called Living in Extremes. And it's exactly about what we were just talking about, is seeing things.
Oh, I love this poem.
Yeah, a lot of people really resonate with this, be if you have BPD or not. Doesn't matter. We all can see this. I wrote this because a staple of borderline is either seeing things as all or nothing. It's black and white. It's good or bad. And my God, after, being diagnosed for 5 years, God damn, I'm finally seeing the gray. And gray isn't a favorite color of mine. I prefer black, baby, but I'm seeing the gray now. And this poem is just an echo of that. You want to strive to see. I need to shut up. I just need to rate the poem because I'm doing too much. So this is Living in Extremes from the first section of Bloom, my second collection. Here we go. Living in Extremes. Of course, or never. Yes or no. Amazing or terrible. Cherish or abhor. All or nothing. Gray is elusive, but black and white lens hide the truth. Seek to see the shades in between. Living in extremes.
Yeah, I think that was one of the poems that hit me when I was reading through that book. I don't know, I might have written a question on it potentially.
I think you did, and that's why I brought it up. I was like,
okay. Yes, okay, I did find it. Okay, so I'm one of those people who struggles with grays in the world. So my question was, how do you go about actually seeing in between those shades?
It's very hard. You have to be mindful. And that is one of the things that dialectical behavioral taught me, is mindfulness. That is the first module of what you learn. And that is being in the present, being in the now. What are you experiencing without judgment? How do I explain it? Okay, I have a thought that comes up. You've not sold a ton of, and this is an actual real life example. Ally, you've only made, X amount of hundreds of dollars this year. You have not made as much as you should. This is showing that, you aren't a good writer. People aren't caring about your book. It's just not meeting the audience it needs to anymore. Okay, that's one thought. But then on the very other end of the spectrum, that's the black. We're on the white now. But you are selling books. People love you. Your work is sold everywhere. You're doing fine. You're doing really well. People love you. Okay, but now we need to come to a middle ground. The middle ground is that my work is great. It is good. But just because a good book is on the shelf doesn't mean that people are always going to buy it.
That's true.
So it's.
And I feel like.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
I feel like judgment is so constant in the world that we live in that it's very hard to remove it. Sometimes I think to myself things and I'm like, oh my goodness, I would never, why am I thinking this? Because that's not really what I think. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I think it's a constant. So the idea of removing that, I feel like that's so difficult.
Yeah, it is.
Take it out of the equation.
And it also brings it back to, you need the intrinsic motivation. The only reason I'm doing as well as I am today is I hit rock bottom in end of 2019, 2020, and I lost myself horribly, really, really bad. And I needed help. I looked at myself in the mirror and I just saw this shell, this girl, not a woman, it was just a girl, and she was really sick and not well. And I said, oh Jesus, okay, I really need to do something about this, because people had been saying things, but it had to come from me, intrinsically in me to do it. And at this point, I had realized that this illness runs in the Loyns lineage, dad, grandpa, great-grandpa, mom's side as well. So I just thought, you know what? I've got to do this. I've got to feel the pain of my ancestors. I'm the generation. I'm the one who's supposed to be the beacon of hope, the siren of change, and I'm the one meant to feel their pain. So we can feel it. We can amalgamize it. Alchemize it within myself, and then let it go. It's the past. We need to move forward. We have such potential here. Don't squander that. Do something with it and make a difference. Everything just hit me at once. It was really hitting rock bottom in 2020, where I said, I've got to change everything. The way I view myself, the way I talk to myself, realizing that there are certain things that, I can change about people, but you really can't change very much about people. You can only change the way that you react to situations, the way you view things. So it was a huge crash, but with that came huge success and stability. I don't want to say happiness because that's a hard one. But stability is huge, and that is what I've strived my whole life to have. A big goal is I want to live a life of peace and happiness, and I'll get there. But for now, I want to live a stable life. And that is what I have made for myself. That is what I've worked towards, and I am living in a stable place now. And that feels great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that's awesome. I think I'm gonna stick with the bloom questions and then we can go back kind of, I guess, to the past since we're already on that topic. So, in your book of Bloom, you mentioned the feeling of being present while not
Yeah.
at the same time. What do you think kind of triggers you to disassociate?
Once there's been a pileup of a whole bunch of things that have been stressful, I can handle,
Mm.
two, three, four things, but, I'll give you real life examples. Add the fact that it's a first death that I'm dealing with right now. I am alone in planning the celebration. It is all on me. I have no family help. That is a lot. I am also going through therapy for some things I've never talked about before, and that is very hard because it is making me challenge the way I view everything and myself. Add little annoyances that happen. Those stack on each other, and then I just say, peace out. I'm done. I don't want to really feel this now. And at that point, I kind of just step out. And the stuff that keeps hitting my skin, it just kind of sits on my skin. I don't let it in.
How do you bounce out of that?
Now that is difficult. For you to get through the stuff, you have to feel it. Like, the only way out is through.
It's through.
And I guess the only thing I can say to that is time is the ultimate equalizer. Like, time heals all. And that is so dumb to say and cheesy and all this, just like my one day at a time thing that I say. It's cheesy and dumb, but oh my God, is it right?
I mean, I don't think that it's dumb. It's funny though because that's the type of thing I would say after I said something. I actually apologized to someone the other day for saying something, and I'm like, I know this is stupid, but
But it's valid.
I think anything that helps you get to a better place like in and of itself means that it's not dumb because it's helping you get to that next level, and if it's helping you, it might be able to help other people too.
Growing up, you'd hear things like time is the ultimate healer and things like that, and just roll your eyes and no, this is how it's going to be forever, you'd think. No, these things that people are saying, these mundane, cliche little things that might sound silly, are actually really valid, and it's sometimes the only way through is those cliche little sayings. So.
Yeah, it is kind of funny to think about it that way. So one of my favorite parts of your book for Bloom is when you mention negative self-talk, and then you also brought in Isaac Newton's laws of motion. Would you say that part of that is because like science plays a big role in your life?
Never really thought of it that way, but when I saw this question, I said I've got to talk about it because I'm not a sciencey person. I'm a very right-brained creative. I don't do the analytical stuff, though you'd think I would because I'm a granddaughter of an economics professor. But anyhow, I wanted to write a piece. I believe we're talking about recovery does not age discriminate. I believe that's the piece we are talking about. I just want to find it here in my book so I can go through it here. Oh, this isn't the first section. What am I? I know better. There we go. So I wrote this for people around me that have always told me they can't change. This is not a poem about myself. This is about people that I've encountered that have said they can't change. They are broken. They are damaged. They are losers. If you keep that self-talk, it'll keep going. But like, you've got to stop it, and then it will stop. So one thing that Angelica, back to my life coach, editor of AGOS, that I wrote Words of an Empowering Woman for, one of the metaphors she used was objects in motion stay in motion and objects at rest stay at rest. Like, you are working and you're meeting the universe halfway there and you're putting the work in. It'll meet you halfway and it will be there because objects in motion do stay in motion. Objects at rest, if you don't put the work in, you don't try, you
can't go anywhere.
Exactly, you can't do it. Like, if you don't roll a ball and the ball's just sitting on the table, it's going to sit there. And why can't that be applied to us and our psychology and our minds and our healing? Seriously. So I never thought of it that way, but it is kind of sciencey. And I do write about botany and parts of the flower. And I guess you could say that's kind of sciencey in a sense. I mean, that's kind of bringing the creativity part into the anatomy of a flower. So yeah, I guess it's science. And then the circle of life, that's also, I guess, a scientific phenomenon. It's just something that, you say that, like, does that work? Kind of?
I mean, I think so.
Yeah. So I guess inadvertently, yes, I write about science and I have scientific influence, but I don't think I do it purposefully. It just kind of happens.
Okay, because I was going to say, I mean, for me, someone who, has a degree in science, I was like, okay, we're getting scientific now.
Okay.
It got me like kind of excited. Not that like I wasn't excited about the rest of the book, but I saw that and I was like, oh, girl knows her science. Like,
it felt right to put those words with the negative self-talk. again, just hearing this from so many people around me, well, I am a shining beacon of hope that you can heal, you can do this. You can have a really shitty childhood or really shitty things happen to you, but you can bounce back, girl. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the work. So this is a poem from Bloom for those who are interested in reading more. This is Recovery Does Not Age Discriminate. And I also wrote this one with spoken word in mind. So I really liked Perform because of the rhyme. So anyhow, this is from the first section of Bloom, my second collection, Recovery Does Not Age Discriminate, for those who want to read more. So that's that one.
Yeah, I love it. So one thing about writing is I know a lot of people do it for different reasons. Is it part of your process for like working through feelings and moving on, or how does that kind of correlate for you?
My poetry is, I don't view it as necessarily generally positive or uplifting is that's the wrong thing I said. My poetry comes from my void. It's from a deep place of hurt, also of joy, of everything. It's not, yes, it's adult Ally speaking, but it's the inner child Ally speaking. It's the empty parts of me that are speaking. Yeah, my poetry is how I have processed my trauma. It's the only way I've been able to let things go. Otherwise, they are stuck in here. I have had to pull them off the metaphorical shelf in my brain, put it in front of me, and write it out. And I did, and I do. And it hurts and it's painful. But that is the only way I can do it. I have to go through to get over it.
Were you always a writer, or was there something in you that kind of sparked? Okay.
I've always
Yeah.
been a wordsmith. I guess that's the way I'd say it. Being raised by two intellectuals, we've got a double gold medalist from the U of A, PhD from University of Berkeley, economics professor grandpa. Then we've got Nana, who taught at Berkeley High School, very well known, great teacher for high schoolers. And I guess I picked up on that. Academics and words really meant a lot. And from as young as 3 or 4, when I started talking, babbling, I would dictate stories to Grandma. She'd write them down and she'd type them in Microsoft Word. So I guess I started off as a storyteller, but then that kind
Okay.
of morphed in grade 6 and grade 7. I believe it was because of Tumblr. Do you remember when Tumblr was a big thing?
Yeah,
When
back in the
sad
day, yeah.
back in the day, I know when everyone seemed to be unstable on there, it was God. Yeah, that was not the place to be, Tumblr. But anyhow, I believe I probably discovered poetry there. I mean, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but I know I spent a lot of time on Tumblr reading poetry. So then I started writing it in grade 6 and 7, and it carried into high school. Ended up doing the advanced placement English courses just because I really enjoyed it. And it wasn't until in high school I had a teacher say, "This is really good, you should submit it for the Literary Arts magazine." And I submit, and my very first time I got in. So I have posted that poem on my Instagram. The following year, grade 12, I submit again, got in. That is also on my Instagram. So those are my two first, I guess, published works, and that was through the high school. But yes, I was a writer for a very long time. But you know what, I will tell you, going through trauma, my voice was taken, and I didn't write for quite a while. I really didn't write in grade 8, grade 9, grade 10. Things were going on. I couldn't write. And then again, I started to pick it back up in grade 11 slowly, but in grade 12, that was really when I was like, yeah, okay, I'm kind of good at this. Use this to express yourself. It's good. So that's kind of where it started.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I know I had asked you a little bit about that earlier, because I know for me, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, man, I'd love to be a writer, but then sometimes when I'm like sitting and I like want to get into it, my mind is like, I have all of these words, but I just
Yeah.
can't get them out.
I completely understand that.
But I also, I don't know, I think it's kind of how you look at things too, right? Because I'm like, I'd love to be a writer, but I don't feel like I could be a writer. But also, okay, I probably can't if I have the mindset that I can't.
Well, you're a good speaker. You present yourself well, so why couldn't you translate that onto the paper? I think you could. So, personally.
And that's coming from a writer herself.
Seriously, like honestly, you just have to believe in yourself. And again, but you just have to believe in yourself. No, girl, that takes takes a long
But
time for you to want to believe in yourself. But once you get to
yeah,
that point,
I know that in your book you had mentioned your pet. You have a cat or cats?
yes, I
Question
have
mark?
I have cats, but this specific poem was written about my cat that I live with here at my grandma's named Rosie. My little girl turned 16 2 weeks ago, so
Oh wow.
I take very good care of the people I watch over. Taking care of Grandpa for 5 years, getting my cat to 16. Nana's still doing well. I think I do a good job at caregiving. So maybe I should go into nursing? No, I'm a writer. We'll stick with writing. So yes, Rosie. I wrote this poem about Rosie. Why did I write it? Well, she's 16. I wrote this in 2023. I thought she was, to be honest with you, I thought she was dying. Like, I don't know, I thought she was not well. And she had
She
just
showed you.
yeah, she showed me, that's for sure. She was just cradled all cutely in my lap, just loving on me, and I was like, I gotta write about this because I know people will resonate with this. Doesn't have to be a cat. It
Hmm.
can be about a dog if you wanted, but no, it's about my little girl. It's about my little cat, Rosie. Yep, yep.
I love pets. I feel like sometimes they help us to feel when we don't want to, but like in a positive way, because they can kind of pick up on energies.
Sometimes,
Like
always, always.
some,
My little girl is God. She's on top of my emotions. I actually call her my therapy cat. That's another reason I've got her to 16. I spend a lot of money on her food because she is my therapy cat. She knows my emotions. She knows when I'm having a freak out. I call it a freak out, even though I
Mhm.
shouldn't. When I'm heightened and I'm not doing well, the cat knows, and she'll come over, and I'll pick her up, and I'll, put my face in her fur, and then I'm fine. So the cat is a healing tool and a calming tool for me. So gotta keep
Mhm.
her kicking.
Going off of, I think earlier before we started recording, we were talking about that amazing love letter you wrote to yourself. Did those words come out easy, or was that something that you had to think about over time in order to get them out?
These were words that I have been wanting to hear from a partner for years.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, we're our own homes. No one else is our home but us. This body is our home. This mind is our home, our temple. So I decided I'm going to write a letter to myself that I would have loved to receive from someone, but instead, your girl's going to write it for herself. So I then went ahead and wrote a love letter to myself. This was an award-winning poem, which is really cool. It won Perfect Poem with the Indieverse Awards. Excitingly enough, this whole collection won Best Poetry Collection with the Indieverse Awards, so that was really cool, winning my first 2 awards for this book. And yeah, a love letter to myself is just me coming home to myself and realizing all of my strengths and my attributes and just everything that's good about Ally. And there is nothing wrong with sitting there and thinking about the good things about yourself because so
Hmm.
many people see it in us. Why can't we see it? Why can't we believe it?
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot easier for me to pinpoint attributes about other people than it is to necessarily talk about the good things that I have. Not that I don't think that I don't have anything to offer. I don't know if I worded that right, but
I hear ya. I totally hear
um
what you're saying.
okay, good. But I think that it's a lot easier. Like I know what it feels like when you're small, so I try and put in a big effort to make other people realize that they aren't small. And sometimes then there isn't the time then to also make sure that I'm not feeling small as well.
I did that for years. I was small for years, and with this diagnosis came, this rock bottom and all this healing that's had to be done. And in that came the words. I found the words that I always needed to hear, and I gave them to myself, and I actually believe them. I
Mm,
don't write things that are disingenuous. Like, I write things that I totally believe wholeheartedly. Again, it's not necessarily even me writing it, it's my void. It's the empty parts of me. And if the empty parts of me think this, then hey, we're doing pretty good. Like, what does the good parts of me think, you know?
yeah.
So, if it's okay with you, I know I've already done 2 readings, but I think maybe a good way, I don't know, to close or whatever, or not, I would love to read a love letter to myself because I love performing.
Yeah. Yeah, dive into it.
It's a favorite. I really like this. The illustration that goes with it is actually my naked body because I am Rubenesque, and that is a word that's used in here. That means curvy, voluptuous, beautiful women. Reuben was a painter of these gorgeous, voluptuous, beautiful women back in the 16th, 17th, 1800s, and I'm exactly that gorgeous, voluptuous, beautiful woman. So I went ahead and used the word Rubenesque because Rubenesque means exactly what I just said. So the illustration here is of me. This is me looking in the mirror. My good friend Kyla Jackson is the illustrator of both volumes. So she said, I want you to send me a photo of this, of you in this state, looking in a mirror, and I'm going to draw it. So that is me kind of in the Rubenesque painting style, if you will. So this is a love letter to myself from the second section of Bloom, my second collection. So here we are. A love letter to myself. You are curious, a soul yearning for more. You are selfless, a heart that continuously gives. You are inspiring, a mind full of wisdom. You are ethereal, a spirit that transcends this world. You are Rubenesque, a body exalted. You, my darling, are divine. A love letter to Ally. A love letter to myself.
Yeah, I would love if somebody wrote me a letter like that.
Well, again, these are words that we won't hear from people.
Hmm.
And I've learned that. We won't hear those words from people. We have to hear it from ourselves first. And as RuPaul said,
Hmm.
ready? Ready? If you can't love yourself, join in if you know it. How
How
the
the
hell
hell
are you gonna love
are you gonna
someone
love
else?
yourself?
Can I get an amen
Hmm.
up here?
Amen.
Yeah, so, and I wholeheartedly believe in that.
One, I guess, last topic I want to talk about this book before I ask you a few on your first one is I feel like grief is a very deep topic. How have you gone about making it past the point of grief when you're experiencing extreme loss?
That's a hard question because I'm literally in the throes of that right now.
Yeah. And I mean, it can be also in terms of like, I know for me, sometimes you can grieve your past self
Yeah,
too.
hugely, hugely. There is one poem specifically in Bloom that I wrote. Well, there's quite a few actually about grief in there if I'm sitting thinking about it now, but one specifically, and that was the first time I had processed my emotions around a certain experience, and it felt really, really good to write it. And I think it's called The Abandoned House in Bloom. I believe that's the piece I'm talking about, but it felt really good to pronounce it, air it out in the wind, let it hang, and then dry. If you know what I mean. Like I aired out my dirty laundry almost. And dirty laundry, I'm talking about
Hmm.
grief, because it is dirty, it's not fun, it's horrible, it's heavy. I struggle with answering this question, quite honestly, because losing someone, and I have a lot to say, it hurts to sit there and write about the really tough stuff, but I don't know, it has to be done. I'm having a really, really hard time answering this question because I'm
I'm
quite.
sorry, I wasn't trying to
No!
trigger you or anything.
No, no,
Okay,
no,
I'm like,
no. No, no, you're not triggering me. My brain's like, how do we answer this? No, it's not triggering at
because
all.
I know for me, like, grief can be a lot because I mean, grief can even be, you lost a friendship
Yep.
that you had for years and you loved everything about it, but it just wasn't meant to continue on anymore. And sometimes I struggle with, like, once I decide I care about someone even when they're not in my life
Yes.
anymore. And so I feel like grief is an important thing to do, but it's not something that I've kind of mastered the tool of
No.
yet because, like I said, once I'm in, I'm in and I'm invested and I always want something amazing for that person's future. And then also, I think it's hard in terms of grief to like grieve things that we thought were going to be meant for us that aren't.
Yeah.
The letting go and realizing that just because we want something doesn't mean that it's going to work.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think that that's something I'm not at a pro at yet. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still in the realization phase of like, oh wow, okay, the concept of life and living life are completely different things.
100%. And you know what? I think I formulated an answer, and it comes right back to DBT, radical acceptance.
Mm,
Things will be. Things will happen. You have to just radically accept it.
I guess that's true. Just because there's no other option, you can't just say that isn't how it is because
No.
that doesn't change
And
anything.
why make yourself suffer and stew on something that you have to just be like, yep, this is it.
Mm,
Like death, for instance. Honestly, like I had to radically accept it's coming. It's life. It happens. Cue That's Life by Frank Sinatra. But anyhow, we just what will be and what won't. Huge. Radical acceptance is so huge in my life. That is some of the only ways I've been able to move on from situations. Is that's
mm.
how that happened and it is what it is. Pick your battles. Pick and choose your battles. Otherwise life is too overwhelming.
Amen. So then to go back to your first book, Generation of Sunflowers, there are many moments in my life where I felt like I didn't necessarily have a voice, or when even when I had a voice, I wasn't heard.
Yeah.
How have you gone about making sure people hear you?
I published A Generation of Sunflowers. I'm not,
Okay.
no, I'm not, like, I actually made, here, I'm just going to pull up an Instagram post here because it is very valid with this. My first Instagram post I made when I changed actually my username from silly crazy Ally. Actually, that was my username. Crazy with a K. That was it for high school. Changed crazy Ally to Ally author. I went ahead. I'm just scrolling down to my my post here. I had made a post of me holding my books, and I just want to do it justice. I don't want to paraphrase. I just prefer to read it. Here we go. You SOB of a phone. All right, here it is. Nope. Here I am wasting time. So she's an author now. Poured my heart and dark nights of the soul into this collection. My voice was taken from me many years ago, but I've found it through my writing, and I'm never losing it again.
Hmm,
And here I am holding the first version of Agos.
that's deep. That's deep. Because I feel like sometimes there's a difference between hearing someone and hearing someone. You know what I mean? Like you can hear the words, but not necessarily pay attention to what that means or what the
Yeah.
person is actually trying to get across.
Yep.
And sometimes I struggle with people like, are you actually hearing me or are you just so in the monotonous, I guess, that you're just you know how to uh-huh, yeah, great. Like you're just kind of in the rotation of what people generally say to these things.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it's just, ugh.
So I only have like three more
That's
questions, I
okay.
promise, and then I'll set you free. So your portion on human existence and slipping away made me think about how in life people can spiral.
Yep.
Have you had moments you felt like you couldn't get back up again? And how did you go about conquering them or making it?
Many, many, many times. So this piece that you were referring to is a piece from Agos, obviously we're talking about, and it's called, there isn't really a title, but I guess I'm just going to use the ending words as the title, and it's Maybe One Day I Won't Wince from Bruises. This is actually about addiction.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's what this one is hugely about. But yeah, I'll use a real life example. When Grandpa got very sick and I had to become the power of attorney and quite literally step up to being a 40-year-old woman at 21 and 22, that scared the living
Hmm.
shit out of me.
Yeah, that's hard.
It really, actually, really, really scared me. And I said I can't do this. I thought I was going to lose it. I thought I would have to actually go to the psych ward, to be honest with you. I was really not doing well. And then I just had this moment of, you are the one meant to do this. No one else around you is capable enough to do this. You're meant to. You are resilient, baby. Resiliency lives in your DNA.
Hmm.
I am resilient as hell. My name should be Ally Loyns because there are so many things that should have kept me down. No, absolutely not. Nobody keeps me down. So I kind of just stepped out of it. I wish I could give you more in-depth, helpful answers, but for me, it was a very sobering moment to see myself so sick in 2020. I did a 360 completely.
Hmm.
So again, I wish I could give you better answers, but for me, it was hitting a wall at 300 miles an hour and then just being like, okay, now we got to pick up the pieces and glue them really well together.
Yeah, we're not going to go back to where we were.
Does that make sense? Did I even answer that
Oh,
correctly? Like, did I answer it
no,
well?
I mean, I think that everyone has their own process for things, and that's why I like conversing with people because everyone has a different life perspective,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think it's important to capture that.
For sure.
Sometimes, okay, so like on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it can be easy to focus on our flaws and not positives we contribute to the world. How have you mended that focus?
Honestly, through my fans, I think in my following, I've learned that I'm worth something. And hearing all of these positive things, I've finally started believing them. It was this intrinsic motivation that I am good. Again, I wish I could give you better answers, but it was just this epiphany of you need to change the way completely you view everything. And I did. I did. I took stock. I took inventory of what I have, what I haven't, what I've done, what I haven't done. And I just said, you are human. We aren't perfect. We're all just
Mm.
trying to make a living and survive and thrive at the same time.
I feel like that's such an important thing to acknowledge is that we all are human and let ourselves learn from mistakes that we make because it's really easy to get stuck in that or feel like I made this choice and it led me to this and this isn't where I want to be and like just get
But
stuck.
you know what, though? I'm going to interject. It's okay to have that thought. It's okay. It's a natural process to have that one little thought, but then move on from it. You can acknowledge it, but then move on from it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, I don't know if that makes sense what I just said.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think so. I guess to like close on my questions, I think my favorite part or my favorite poem in this book is Truths Told by an Enlightened, Powerful Ally. Did it feel freeing to finally speak your mind while writing it or while writing your truth?
Some truths are hard to swallow. Some pills are really big and hard to swallow. And I have written this, but I am not living it quite yet. I'm being very honest, raw, and real right now.
I mean, I think that's okay. Sometimes it's easier, the first step is acknowledging, and sometimes putting that thought out on paper and putting that out is, a message, and that's going to propel you to be where you want to be.
It is an incredible piece. I loved writing that. It felt very empowering. Again, this is one of the last pieces in my first collection, A Generation of Sunflowers, for those who are interested. And yeah, again, it was needed. I needed to write that piece. And if I'm being honest with you, I have part two that will be going into Flourish for that piece.
Nice. Okay.
Such a good piece to write, but have I acted on it? Am I walk the walk, talk the talk? No, I think I'm just talking the talk. I'm not walking the walk quite yet. And I see myself and I'm catching myself and I'm aware of that. So
Big steps. Do you have any closing thoughts or things that you want to say?
this has been a lot of fun, actually. So I've done, honestly, probably 12 or 13 episodes with people being a guest, and this one you really went in on on the poems, on the meeting, on the symbolism. And when you sent me that question list, I just said, yes, girl, like you get it. You really want to understand. So I was so thrilled when you reached out to me because this is what I want. I want to get into the nitty gritty. You asked such different things that I'd never thought of before. You know, a roll call or a call back to the science question that you'd asked. Never thought about it that way. And I'm like, that's really cool. We need to talk about this. So I just really enjoy the time that you've spent talking to me, the time that you spent digging and diving into my books. I mean, yes, the poems are good, but they're heavy. They can be very heavy and maybe triggering at times. But I'm not someone to put a trigger warning in my book. I'm not doing that.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I was very nervous when I sent you those because I'm like, what if I totally took in her book the way that she did not intend?
This is perfect.
And so when you responded and you were like, wow, like this is deep, I was like, okay, I can breathe again now. Like, I'm getting the message and I'm, able to ask things that are where you're trying to go.
Yes.
Cool. So now
So
I'm just gonna do my little extra again,
Yep.
not memorized, but we're just gonna go with it.
Yep.
So, thank you for joining me on this journey of rediscovery. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you, oh my God, this part makes me feel uncomfortable, but to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might need it. Remember, healing isn't linear, growth takes courage, but you're never alone in it. Let's keep this conversation going. Follow the Rediscovery Journal on Instagram at the Rediscovery Journal. And if you have thoughts, questions, or stories you'd like to share, feel free to email me at rediscoveryjournal@gmail.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and most of all, keep showing up for yourself. Thank you.